Greetings, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Digital Daylight Gaming. This is your host, the AntiClause, as always, and today I'm checking out the new CoD Call of Duty World War II. And I'm changing up the format a bit, for starters, because today is Monday, and usually Monday I look at some sort of indie game, and this is obviously not an indie game. This is pretty much the pinnacle of what you would call a AAA title. Besides this being a AAA title, I'm also doing this where I'm recording my commentary after I have already played a bunch. I recorded a bunch of gameplay stuff, and I talked while I did it, and it just didn't sound natural. I kept getting distracted, and I decided to do this more as a commenting after the fact kind of thing, almost a Jim Sterling style, because I want to say some stuff about this kind of genre of game anyway. Now, it's one of those things. I've been playing COD games since, I think, the very first Call of Duty. I've always liked them. I always kind of like that, kind of faster pace. The Battlefield games are the more serious, tactical planning, whereas Call of Duty is more fast-paced, run and gun, get up in somebody's face, almost the old school deathmatch kind of thing. Now, mind you, I've always been a big fan of, the World War II games and stuff like that, and that's where I really first started getting into online multiplayer first-person shooters, was the glut of World War II games that we had for the longest time. The Call of Duty franchise was, in fact, one of the things that got me into that, along with Battlefield 1942, but I didn't like Battlefield 1942. I didn't like all the vehicles that they had in it. I prefer the ground infantry stuff, so I always preferred Call of Duty games. But as time has gone on, for the most part, Call of Duty games have become more and more fast-paced, more and more action-y. A lot of their stuff tends to be smaller maps, and the new one is no different. They've actually reduced the game size down to 6 versus 6, so the maximum number of people you have in a map is 12, which means the map sizes are actually, notably smaller. That way it kind of forces people to confront each other sooner, quicker, faster. And I think this actually leads to one of the things that, and this could just be me getting old, is one of the things I no longer like about Call of Duties is they are a bit too arcadey. They are not, I don't necessarily mind that they're fast-paced, but they're definitely not really tactically strategic, at least compared to Battlefield games at this point, or certain other games. Even Overwatch requires more thought, planning, and tactics than your usual Call of Duty game does at this point. Now, that's not saying that's not a bad thing. I like a good action, fast-paced game myself on occasion. But the thing with the Call of Duty games is the fact that the majority of people who play those on PC end up being lower than on console, and those people tend to also get burnt out with it relatively quickly. As a result, unfortunately, after the first couple of months of the game, you end up having issues finding people to play with. I think the last Call of Duty game I actually bought was Black Ops 3, and it was one of those things that it had plenty of games that I could find within the first month or two, but then I ended up having some other stuff came out, and I ended up playing those. And when I went back to play Black Ops 3, especially playing in the middle of the night, because I am a day sleeper, I couldn't find games for it. I think the first DLC was actually out at that point, and even with the DLC, because I figured, it might be that separation of DLC maps not being able to find matchmaking stuff, I still couldn't find games. And that game at the time was only a few months old. So it's one of those things. The Call of Duty games at this point, you really have to get in there early and get in there as quick as possible, because if you don't play it a whole bunch within the first release period, you're probably not going to be able to play it a whole lot on PC. Now, on consoles, I know that's a completely different scenario because for the most part, the Call of Duty games tend to be very big on consoles because there's not a lot of really good, fast-paced, first-person shooter multiplayer games on consoles. As a result, the longevity on consoles tends to be much larger. This one will be no different. World War II will do a fantastic on consoles, and it will be around for a good while.
Losing objective Anton.
Sadly, as a primarily PC player, though, that doesn't look too good for me because it looks like, from early looks at Reddit and stuff I've read online, a lot of people aren't even happy with it now, even in a beta situation, where a lot of people aren't planning on actually picking it up for PC.
Losing objective Bertha. B is lost. Enemy recon aircraft in the air.
Matter of fact, a lot of people who do own PCs that normally play Call of Duties on PCs are thinking about getting it for their PS4 or Xbox One instead of PC, just because they know it will have a better longevity there.
Enemy capturing Anton. Anton is lost. Kaiser is lost.
And people are upset about a number of things, as people are always upset. And sometimes it's, beta issues kind of thing that will hopefully be worked out. Weapon balance, stuff like that, the usual gripes. One of the things people always have issues with the new COD games is there's no dedicated servers. They use what are called listen servers. Your ping is going to be based off of where they're at, so connecting to them, which ends up having some janky lag effects and things like that that end up throwing off your shots. People never like that, especially when it's a fast-paced arcadey game.
Losing objective Kaiser. Enemy contact at Kaiser.
Now, some of the netcode and stuff like that could end up getting fixed that ends up making that better, but at the same time, that stuff takes time, and for a game like this, taking time isn't something that always is there.
Enemy contact at Bertha. Losing objective Bertha.
Especially with October coming up and the number of games that are coming out in October. Unfortunately, I'm going to probably end up passing on this one, even though I did have a lot of fun in what time I did actually play it during the beta. But I have enough other games coming out in October that I really want to play that by the time I ever got around to playing this, no one would probably be playing already. That said, if it ever does coming out on a decent Steam sale or something like that, I will probably pick it up right away, just because at that time I know a whole bunch of other people might pick it up too, and that might get a little bit of longevity for it, at least for a short period of time, and I'll be able to play it and enjoy myself and just have fun with it. And I won't have to worry about prioritizing other games to make sure I get in playtime while the game is still relevant.